A passenger train collided with a vehicle at a level crossing in southern Denmark on Friday, killing one person and injuring around 20 others. Several train carriages were derailed or overturned. Emergency services, including drones and search dogs, responded to the scene, this according to the Denmark, which operates Denmark's rail network, the Associated Press has reported. Australia has launched its largest ever military exercises with the Philippines, involving over 3,600 personnel in live fire drills, maneuvers, and a beach assault near the disputed South China Sea. The drills, called Alan, feature fighter jets, a guided missile destroyer, troop aircraft, anti tank weapons, and a special forces, and will run until August the 29th. Observers from the United States, Japan, Canada, South Korea, and New Zealand and Indonesia are also participating. The exercise aimed to strengthen regional security amid tensions with China, which has criticized such multinational drills, the Associated Press has reported. Recent incidents, including collisions and near misses between Chinese and Philippine or Australian forces, underscore rising disputes in the resource rich waters. Russian hackers reportedly took control of a Norwegian fish farming dam in April, opening a floodgate for 4 hours and releasing 500 liters per second, Norway's intelligence service has said, known as the PST. The attack, attributed to pro Russian cyber actors, caused no damage due to low water levels but aimed to create fear and disruption. A video linked to the group was shared on Telegram, and the PST warned of growing Russian cyber activity targeting Norway, The Guardian has reported. Moscow denied the claims, calling them politically motivated. Astronomers have imaged a distant blazar, PKS 1424 plus 240, nicknamed the Eye of Sauron, whose supermassive black hole shoots a jet of plasma and cosmic radiation directly toward Earth from 7.4 billion light years away. Despite its brightness, the blazar poses no danger. Observations revealed it emits massive amounts of gamma rays and neutrinos, yet its jets appear slower than expected due to an optical illusion caused by their direct alignment with Earth, Futurism has reported. The study also mapped the jet's spiromagnetic field, offering insights into supermassive black holes and cosmic jet dynamics. SpaceX launched 28 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit on Thursday from Cape Canaveral, using Falcon 9 booster B1085 on its 10th flight. Liftoff occurred at 8:29 a.m. local time, and the booster successfully landed on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. This mission brings SpaceX's 2025 Starlink launches to 1,762 satellites across 71 Falcon 9 flights, Spaceflight Now has reported. Meanwhile, the U.S. Space Force is seeking approval to increase Falcon 9 launches at Vandenberg Space Force Base from 50 to 95 and upgrade the site for both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launches. Texas Governor Greg Abbott called for a second special session to pass a new congressional map after Democrats blocked the first by leaving the state. The session began shortly after the first one ended, but Republicans still lacked a quorum due to absent Democrats, who are mainly in Illinois, protesting the redistricting aimed at adding 5 GOP seats for the midterms. Governor Abbott criticized Democrats for avoiding their legislative duties, while Speaker Dustin Burrows warned that out-of-state members could face civil arrest if they return before quorum is met, Politico has reported. Lawmakers expect the House to reach quorum by Monday. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has rejected any proposal to cede the Donbass region to Russia in exchange for a ceasefire, warning that it would serve as a launch pad for future attacks. His comments come ahead of a Friday summit in Alaska between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, where territorial swaps are reportedly under discussion. Russia has recently advanced near Dobropilia, part of a broader summer offensive, while also preparing new assaults on multiple different fronts. Zelensky, frustrated at being excluded from the talks, called the meeting a quote personal victory for Putin and warned that any deal made without Kyiv's involvement would be invalid, the BBC has reported. Russia currently occupies nearly 20% of Ukraine. Typhoon Podol crossed southern Taiwan, prompting school and office closures as heavy rain threatened crops in the southeast. The storm hit Taitung before moving west toward China, where 15,000 people were evacuated. One person is reported missing in Taiwan. While no major damage occurred, several southern cities faced flooding, flight disruptions, and agricultural risks, the Associated Press reported. Typhoon Podol is expected to weaken as it moves across the Taiwan Strait. The European Union rejected U.S. President Donald Trump's proposal for Ukraine and Russia to swap territory, insisting no concessions should be made until Russia agrees to a full, unconditional ceasefire with security guarantees. The European Union Foreign Policy Chief, Kaja Kallas, said that any U.S. Russia deal must include Ukraine and the European Union, stressing that all occupied Ukrainian territory must be returned and aggression cannot be rewarded. The stance comes ahead of Trump's planned Friday meeting with Vladimir Putin, which has drawn criticism from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who vowed not to cede land, Fox News has reported. European leaders also reaffirmed that peace in Ukraine cannot be decided without Kyiv's involvement. An Israeli airstrike near Gaza City's Shifa hospital on Sunday killed Al Jazeera correspondent Anas al Sharif and another Al Jazeera correspondent, along with 4 other journalists and 2 additional people who were all sheltering outside the complex. The blast damaged the hospital's emergency building entrance. Press advocates condemned the strike as retaliation against those documenting the war, while Israel's military claimed that al Sharif was a Hamas cell leader, an accusation both he and Al Jazeera have long denied, the Associated Press has reported. It was the first time during the conflict that Israel's military quickly acknowledged responsibility for killing a journalist. Japan marked the 80th anniversary of its World War II surrender, with Prime Minister Ishiba expressing remorse for the first time since 2013. About 4,500 officials and families observed a moment of silence for the more than 3 million war dead, while Ishiba urged passing on the memory of the war to future generations to ensure lasting peace. Meanwhile, right-wing politicians, including the Japanese agricultural minister, visited the controversial Yasukuni Shrine, which honors convicted war criminals and has drawn criticism from China and South Korea, Euro News has reported. Former U.S. Navy SEAL Eric Prince's security firm, Vectis Global, plans to send about 200 contractors from multiple countries to Haiti under a 1-year deal to combat gang violence and help reclaim territory from heavily armed gangs. The team will support Haiti's national police and a struggling UN-backed Kenyan-led mission, and later advise on restoring revenue collection. Critics warned the deployment may violate U.S. law without government approval and could fragment authority in Haiti, NPR has reported. The move comes amid escalating violence from the powerful Viv Ensemble Gang Federation, which has caused mass prison breaks, airport closures, and widespread displacement of 1.3 million people. Eastman Kodak warned that it may not survive, citing a lack of committed financing or liquidity to cover about $500 million in upcoming debt. The 133-year-old photography company plans to cut pension payments and sell assets to raise cash. Shares fell over 7% after the announcement. Once dominant in film and cameras, Kodak's failure to adapt to digital photography led to a 2012 bankruptcy, CNN has reported. It has since pivoted to making films, chemicals, and licensing its brand, with recent efforts to expand into pharmaceutical ingredients. Italian firefighters and the army are battling a wildfire on Mount Vesuvius, forcing the closure of all hiking trails in the popular national park near Naples. 12 firefighting teams, 6 Canadian planes, and reinforcements from other regions are working to contain the blaze, which is concentrated on the densely vegetated Mount Soma slopes. High temperatures, wind, and dry pine needles are fueling the flames, threatening local farms and vineyards, while prosecutors investigate the cause, CBS News has reported. The Vesuvius fire comes amid a wave of intense wildfires across Europe, including major blazes in Spain, France, and Greece, driven by extreme summer heat. Mary Ann McDermott, 31 years old, a former USPS worker from Carson, California, pleaded guilty to conspiring to commit bank fraud after stealing mail containing checks, credit cards, and personal information between 2022 to July of 2025. She used the stolen items to fund luxury purchases and international trips, sold some to co conspirators, and facilitated check cashing with fake IDs. Searches of her home uncovered over 130 stolen cards, U.S. Treasury checks, luxury goods, and a loaded ghost gun, The Hill has reported. She faces up to 30 years in prison when sentenced on October the 27th. A bright meteor lit up the night sky over Victoria, Australia on Sunday, producing a loud sonic boom that rattled homes in several neighborhoods. Experts believe fragments likely reached the ground, with a possible fall site northeast of Maryborough. The event, which is unrelated to the Perseids meteor shower, was confirmed by astronomers to be a meteor rather than space debris, The Independent has reported. Torrential rains have triggered flash floods in India and Pakistan, killing over 280 people and leaving many missing. Rescuers evacuated around 1,600 people from mountainous areas, while in Pakistan, a relief helicopter crashed in bad weather, killing all 5 aboard. In India, floods halted a major Hindu pilgrimage and forced thousands to evacuate, the Associated Press has reported. Experts link the surge in destructive cloudbursts to climate change and unplanned mountain development. Victor Martinez Hernandez was sentenced to life in prison without parole on Monday for the kidnapping, rape, and murder of Maryland mother Rachel Morin, whose body was found in Bel Air in August of 2023. Martinez Hernandez received the maximum sentences on all counts and will serve his time in Maryland. He was arrested after a 10-month manhunt and found guilty back in April, with DNA and evidence proving premeditation. Morin's family expressed relief at the closure of the sentence, though they acknowledge the loss remains, CBS News has reported. Authorities revealed Martinez Hernandez had entered the United States illegally after being accused of murder in El Salvador. Bullish, the cryptocurrency exchange and Coindesk owner, saw its stock surge 8% pre market Thursday to $75, doubling its $37 IPO price and valuing the company over $10 billion, despite a 20% drop from Wednesday's opening at $90. Shares briefly spiked to $118 after trading began, prompting volatility halts. Bullish raised $1.1 billion in the IPO, above its expected $32 to $33 range, following a failed 2021 SPAC attempt. The debut reflects strong institutional demand, including from BlackRock and ARK Invest, and continued momentum in 2025's active IPO market, Yahoo Finance has reported. CEO Thomas Farley cited the digital assets industry next growth phase as a key driver. Gildan Activewear will acquire U.S. undergarments maker Hanes Brands for $2.2 billion in cash and stock, paying about $6 per share, a 24% premium. The deal merges Hanes Brands' strong retail brands, including Hanes, Maidenform, and Playtex, with Gildan's global wholesale operations. Analysts say Gildan's low cost manufacturing could improve efficiency. The acquisition follows years of challenges for Hanes Brands, including declining sales and heavy debt, though recent cost cutting improved margins, CNBC has reported. The deal is expected to close in late 2025 or early 2026 and should boost adjusted profit per share. California authorities rescued a 46-year-old Long Beach man who was trapped for 2 days behind a waterfall in the remote Seven Teacups area after powerful water knocked him off his rappelling lines. Search teams used drones and infrared technology to locate the man, and a California Highway Patrol helicopter hoisted him to safety. He was treated for minor injuries and dehydration before reuniting with his family, the Associated Press has reported. The challenging Cascades are known for their dangerous terrain and require advanced climbing experience. China says it warned and then expelled the U.S. destroyer USS Higgins after it sailed near its disputed Scarborough Shoal, accusing Washington of violating its sovereignty and destabilizing the South China Sea. The U.S. Navy rejected Beijing's claims, saying the mission was a lawful, quote, freedom of navigation operation. The shoal, claimed by both China and the Philippines, lies in a region of frequent maritime clashes. The incident comes amid renewed U.S. China tensions and follows a collision between Chinese vessels during a chase of a Philippine patrol boat, CNBC has reported. The dispute ties into a broader security concerns, with the United States committed to defending the Philippines under a 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty. Nicholas Oliverdian, a Rhode Island fugitive who once faked his death to avoid U.S. rape charges, has been convicted in Utah of first-degree rape for assaulting his then-girlfriend in 2008. Prosecutors say he trapped and raped the woman after becoming abusive during their relationship. The 38-year-old faces 5 years to life in prison when sentenced on October the 20th, and still awaits trial in a separate 2008 rape case involving another woman, USA Today has reported. U.S. authorities have indicted Jimmy Barbecue Scherzier, a Haitian gang leader, and Basil Richardson, a naturalized U.S. citizen, for conspiring to send U.S. funds to finance Scherzier's gang. Scherzier, currently a fugitive believed to be in Haiti, was sanctioned in 2020 under the Magnitsky Act for human rights abuses, including the 2018 La Saline massacre. Richardson was arrested in Texas for allegedly sending money to Scherzier despite knowing of the sanctions. The DOJ said funds were used to pay gang members and buy firearms. The State Department is offering up to $5 million for information leading to Scherzier's arrest, Fox News has reported. The indictment marks the first under the Magnitsky Act for someone sanctioned for human rights violations. A Chilean judge has suspended proceedings against U.S. teen pilot and influencer Ethan Gao, who has been stranded on an Antarctic island since June after allegedly landing there without permission. Gao, who was attempting to fly solo to all 7 continents for cancer research fundraising, was accused of filing a false flight plan. Under the deal, he must donate $30,000 to a children's cancer charity, leave the country of Chile, and stay out of its territory for 3 years, or face renewed prosecution. Authorities say he deviated from his route mid-flight. His lawyer cites an in-air complication, CNN has reported. Gao and his plane remain in Antarctica, with limited options to leave before early October. Gloucester Township, New Jersey, has passed a measure holding parents legally accountable for crimes committed by their children under the age of 18, with penalties of up to 90 days in jail or $2,000 in fines. The ordinance lists 28 offenses, from disorderly conduct to felonies, with harsher consequences for repeat offenders. The move follows a 2023 community event where a massive brawl involving mostly teens injured 3 police officers and led to multiple arrests, the U.S. Sun has reported. Officials say the law aims to curb, quote, lawlessness among unsupervised youth and prevent future violent incidents. Russian hackers reportedly took control of a Norwegian fish farming dam in April, opening a floodgate for 4 hours and releasing 500 liters per second, Norway's intelligence service has said, known as the PST. The attack, attributed to pro-Russian cyber actors, caused no damage due to low water levels, but aimed to create fear and disruption. A video linked to the group was shared on Telegram, and the PST warned of growing Russian cyber activity targeting Norway, The Guardian has reported. Moscow denied the claims, calling them politically motivated. Astronomers using NASA's James Webb Space Telescope have identified 300 unusually bright objects in the early universe, possibly early galaxies, that shine far brighter than current models predict. Detected through the dropout technique, these objects appear extremely distant, showing the cosmos as it was over 13 billion years ago. If confirmed, they could challenge existing theories of how quickly the first stars and galaxies formed, Space.com has reported. Researchers plan follow-up spectroscopic observations to verify the findings, which were published in the Astrophysical Journal. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese announced that Australia will recognize a Palestinian state, formalizing the decision at the UN General Assembly in September. The move follows commitments from the Palestinian Authority to exclude Hamas from government, demilitarize Gaza, and hold elections. Citing the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and Israel's defiance of international law, Albanese called a 2-state solution the best hope for ending the conflict, CBS News has reported. The announcement comes amid Israeli plans for an expanded military offensive in Gaza, which have drawn global criticism. Israel rejects the recognition, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called it, quote, shameful. A mass shooting on Chicago's West Side early Sunday left one woman dead and five others injured. Police found multiple victims at a large gathering near North La Crosse Avenue around 3 a.m. local time. The 22-year-old woman who was shot in the back died at the hospital, while others, including three critically injured men and two treated for less severe wounds, were hospitalized, CBS News has reported. No arrests have been made, and the Chicago police have not disclosed a motive or if the incident is linked to a nearby shooting. Wildfires, fueled by hot, dry weather conditions, continued to burn across Spain, Portugal, and Greece on Friday, coinciding with major religious holidays in the region. Spain battled 14 major fires, including large blazes in Galicia that closed highways and suspended high speed rail, with temperatures over 40 degrees Celsius expected through Monday. Portugal deployed nearly 4,000 firefighters to seven major fires, all under an extended state of alert. In Greece, a fire on Chios Island raged for a fourth day, forcing more evacuations, while authorities remained on high alert near Athens, ABC News has reported. Leaders and religious figures expressed solidarity with those affected. New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell has been indicted on federal conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction charges, accused of concealing a romantic relationship with her bodyguard, Jeffrey Vapey, and misusing public funds for personal trips and meetings. Prosecutors allege the pair falsified payroll records, exchanged encrypted messages to avoid detection, and deleted communications. Vapey, also indicted, has pleaded not guilty and faces trial in January. Cantrell, term limited and leaving office in January, denies any wrongdoing and claims that she has been unfairly targeted, CNN has reported. The indictment follows a long federal investigation that has further weakened her political standing during a turbulent second term. SpaceX launched 28 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit on Thursday from Cape Canaveral, using Falcon 9 booster B1085 on its 10th flight. Liftoff occurred at 8:29 a.m. local time, and the booster successfully landed on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. This mission brings SpaceX's 2025 Starlink launches to 1,762 satellites across 71 Falcon 9 flights, Spaceflight Now has reported. Meanwhile, the U.S. Space Force is seeking approval to increase Falcon 9 launches at Vandenberg Space Force Base from 50 to 95 and upgrade the site for both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launches. Malian authorities have arrested two army generals, dozens of soldiers, civilians, and a suspected French intelligence agent over an alleged plot to destabilize the country. The security minister said that the coup attempt, which began on August the 1st, involved foreign support and has been, quote, completely foiled. The French suspect is accused of working on behalf of France's intelligence service. The detained generals include some previously dismissed after calling for an army abuse probe, Al Jazeera has reported. Mali's military government, which is led by their president, has distanced itself from France and aligned itself with Russia amid a prolonged security crisis. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has appointed Ed Martin, a conservative former interim U.S. attorney, as a special attorney to investigate mortgage fraud allegations against Senator Adam Schiff and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Separate grand juries in Virginia and Maryland will probe the cases. The investigations stem from referrals alleging false mortgage statements linked to both the Democrats, who deny wrongdoing. Schiff's lawyer called the claims, quote, false and debunked, while James's probe also examines whether her office violated legal rights in civil fraud cases against President Donald Trump and the NRA. James's attorney condemned the investigation as politically motivated, NBC News has reported. Martin's appointment has drawn criticism from Democrats. Israeli gunfire killed at least 25 people seeking aid in Gaza. This, according to health officials and witnesses. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated his call for what he terms voluntary migration of Palestinians from the territory, a plan critics warn could amount to ethnic cleansing. Witnesses said many of the victims were shot while traveling to aid distribution points or waiting for convoys in Gaza City, the Associated Press has reported. Efforts to revive ceasefire talks have resumed after apparently breaking down last month. President Trump said he plans to meet with top congressional Democrats Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries before the September 30th government funding deadline, but expressed skepticism about reaching an agreement, calling it, quote, almost a waste of time. Tensions are high as Congress, currently out of session, faces the risk of a partial government shutdown. While Senate Republicans have passed a few spending bills, a short-term funding extension likely will be needed, requiring Democratic support, Fox News has reported. Schumer criticized Trump's approach, calling it a failure of leadership, and stressed that future negotiations must be bipartisan to avoid repeating past partisan funding conflicts. Three people were killed Monday in a shooting outside a Target store in Austin, Texas, before the 32-year-old male suspect fled in a stolen car, police have said. One of the victims was the carjacking target. After crashing the vehicle, the suspect stole another car from a dealership and then was later arrested in the southern Austin neighborhood after being subdued with a taser, ABC News has reported. The motive remains under investigation. California Governor Gavin Newsom urged lawmakers to approve a November ballot measure known as the Election Rigging Response Act, allowing Democrats to redraw congressional maps to counter Republican mid-decade redistricting in Texas. The move would bypass California's independent commission and potentially protect Democratic House seats in the 2026 elections. Newsom framed the effort as a response to Trump-backed GOP plans in Texas to gain up to 5 additional seats. The proposal requires legislative approval and voter backing, with maps expected soon, NBC News has reported. The dispute highlights a nationwide partisan tit-for-tat over redistricting, as Texas Democrats fled the state to block the GOP plan. NVIDIA and AMD have agreed to pay the U.S. government 15% of their semiconductor sales revenue to China in exchange for export licenses, a deal reported by the Financial Times. This arrangement follows NVIDIA's H20 chips and AMD's MI308 chips to be sold in China amid ongoing U.S.-China trade tensions. While the trade deal could generate billions for the United States, China has raised security concerns, accusing the chips of potentially having backdoors, claims that NVIDIA denies, CNN has reported. The move is also part of a broader trade negotiation with China, which is also seeking eased U.S. export controls on critical AI chip components like high bandwidth memory chips ahead of a potential Trump Xi summit. The Space Force and United Launch Alliance successfully launched the experimental NTS-3 satellite from Cape Canaveral, marking the first national security flight of ULA's Vulcan rocket. Built by L3 Harris for the Air Force Research Lab and Space Systems Command, NTS-3 will test new positioning, navigation, and timing technologies that could enhance future GPS satellites, ground systems, and user equipment. Originally scheduled for 2022, the launch was delayed, allowing extended lab testing and the addition of new signals. In orbit, NTS 3 will perform over 100 experiments, including GPS signal broadcast, autonomous operations, and anti spoofing test, Defense News has reported. Successful technologies may be integrated into GPS 3F satellites or future resilient GPS small satellite constellations. Greek police, tipped off by the United Kingdom's National Crime Agency, seized nearly 600 pounds of cocaine worth over $6.5 million hidden in a banana container from Ecuador. The shipment arrived in a Greek city, and most of the drugs were removed before the container was then sent to another city where 3 men, 2 Greeks and a Bulgarian, were then arrested. Authorities say that the Bulgarian coordinated with a drug gang while another suspect handled distribution, CBS News has reported. Police are seeking more suspects linked to the trafficking network. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent called for a ban on lawmakers trading individual stocks, criticizing members like Nancy Pelosi and Ron Wyden for highly profitable trades. While current law prohibits insider trading and requires disclosures, critics say it doesn't go far enough. Pelosi's office said she doesn't own stocks, and she has supported legislation to bar members, spouses, and top officials from trading. Wyden defended his trades and criticized Bessent personally, The Hill has reported. The push for a ban has bipartisan support, with several House members advocating legislation amid ongoing scrutiny of both Democratic and Republican lawmakers' stock activity. AOL, famous for its dial up internet service and iconic You've Got Mail greeting, announced that it will discontinue its dial up internet, AOL Dialer software, and AOL Shield browser on September the 30th. Once widely known for its trial CDs in the 1990s, AOL's dial up connected users via telephone lines with a distinctive chirping sound. Now part of Yahoo, AOL was sold by Verizon to Apollo Global Management back in 2021, NBC News has reported. At a White House summit, Armenian Prime Minister Pashinyan and Azerbaijani President Aliyev, flanking President Donald Trump, shook hands and signed a historic agreement to end decades of conflict. The deal, which includes reopening key transport routes and creating a major transit corridor named the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, aims to boost regional connectivity and reduce Russia's influence. Both leaders praised President Trump's role, with Aliyev calling it, quote, a miracle, and Pashinyan calling the agreement, quote, a significant milestone. The route will connect Azerbaijan to an enclave through Armenian territory, a major striking point in past talks, NBC News has reported. President Trump expressed confidence in lasting peace and hinted at visiting the corridor, while also highlighting his growing reputation as a global peacemaker. NASA's SpaceX Crew 10 returned back to Earth on August the 9th after 7 months aboard the International Space Station. The crew conducted extensive research on plant growth, space radiation effects, and microgravity's impact on human biology, advancing technologies for future Moon and Mars missions, NASA has reported. Two astronauts also performed a May 1st spacewalk, marking one astronaut's third and the other's first. A massive jellyfish swarm clogged the cooling water intake at one of France's nuclear power plants, forcing all four reactors offline late Sunday. Three reactors shut down automatically, while a fourth was already offline for maintenance. EDF said there was no safety risk or impact on power exports. The North Sea fed plant, which can power 5 million homes, joins a long list of coastal facilities worldwide from Scotland to China disrupted by sudden jellyfish blooms, The Guardian has reported. Scientists have been developing early warning tools to predict such swarms. An explosion on Monday at U.S. Steel's Clairton Coke Works factory near Pittsburgh killed two workers and injured at least 10 others, five critically. The blast occurred between two batteries at the nation's largest coke manufacturing plant, prompting air quality monitoring and precautionary shelter in place advice for nearby residents, though no harmful pollution levels were detected. The cause is under investigation, and company and union officials pledged support for affected workers and a thorough review of the incident, NBC News has reported. Vice President J.D. Vance defended the Trump administration's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files, accusing Democrats of political opportunism and inaction during their time in power. Speaking on Fox News, Vance said President Trump demanded full transparency and criticized Democrats for suddenly showing interest in the case. He claimed Epstein had ties to left wing politicians. Vance emphasized ongoing efforts to release documents, while the Justice Department plans to disclose grand jury exhibits with redactions. He also denied that a recent White House meeting that he attended focused on the Epstein files, despite reports to the contrary, CNN has reported. Meanwhile, the House Oversight Committee issued subpoenas related to the case as public pressure to unseal documents grows. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos warned that while the country hopes to avoid conflict, it could be, quote, dragged kicking and screaming into any war over Taiwan due to its proximity and ties with the island. He stressed the need to prepare, given the large number of Filipinos working in Taiwan and the Philippines' geographic location. President Marcos' remarks during a recent interview angered China, which accused him of, quote, playing with fire, the AFP has reported. The Philippines and China have ongoing tensions in the South China Sea, and since 2022, President Marcos has strengthened ties with the United States, a mutual defense treaty partner. A man, Sean Charles Dunn, now faces federal assault charges after allegedly throwing a Subway sandwich at a U.S. Customs and Border Protection agent in Washington, D.C. during a confrontation. The incident occurred Sunday night near U Street, with Dunn reportedly shouting obscenities at the agent before forcefully hurling the sandwich. He was then arrested after fleeing the scene, but he admitted to the act, Fox News has reported. Dunn is charged with felony assault on law enforcement officer amid heightened federal police presence in the city. California Governor Gavin Newsom announced that the state will draw new congressional maps aimed at helping Democrats regain control of the U.S. House and potentially ending President Trump's influence, mimicking Trump's all caps social media style in his post. The move comes in response to Texas Republicans' redistricting efforts, which could give GOP candidates 3 to 5 additional House seats. California plans to release draft maps on Friday, with Newsom suggesting a possible special election in November, ABC News has reported. He also urged Trump to pressure Texas officials to halt their redistricting, while Texas Democrats have fled the state in protest. Finland has charged the captain and 2 crew members of the oil tanker Eagle S, suspected of belonging to Russia's Shadow Fleet, with aggravated criminal mischief and interference with communications over the December 2024 sabotage of 5 telecom cables in the Gulf of Finland. The defendants deny the charges, arguing the damage occurred outside Finnish waters. The case, which led to the seizure of the vessel, has heightened concerns over Moscow's Shadow Fleet and follows other Baltic Sea cable disruptions that have prompted increased NATO protection of critical infrastructure, Politico has reported. Mark Longo and Daniela Bittner are suing New York State for $10 million, alleging constitutional violations and wrongful killing of their pet squirrel Peanut and their pet raccoon Fred, which were seized and then euthanized by New York State officials back in October of 2024. The lawsuit claims the animals were companion pets, not, quote, wild animals under the law, and that their deaths, later confirmed unrelated to rabies, were an act of government overreach. The couple says the raid, the arrest, and the seizure exceeded legal authority, causing emotional distress and reputational harm, Newsweek has reported. The case could set precedent for how wildlife laws apply to domesticated exotic animals. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced that he will not run for president in 2028, dismissing speculation fueled by right-wing activist Laura Loomer. Kennedy, who endorsed Trump after dropping out of the 2024 race, said his focus remains on combating chronic disease through the Make America Healthy Again movement. He defended his aide, Stephanie Speer, targeted by Loomer for alleged disloyalty to Trump, The Hill has reported. Kennedy supporters, including the MAHA PAC leader Tony Mayans, confirmed that the 2028 candidacy rumors are false and emphasized Kennedy's commitment to his health-focused mission rather than a political bid. A man died after being struck by a vehicle on a Southern California freeway while fleeing an immigration raid at a Monrovia Home Depot, authorities have said. Local officials confirmed the incident occurred during U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement activity, though DHS denied pursuing the man. His identity has not yet been released. Advocates say 10 to 13 workers were detained in what they described as an aggressive operation, which is part of a broader focus on Home Depot locations frequented by day laborers, NBC News has reported. The death has sparked criticism from community leaders, who argue such raids endanger lives and instill fear. London police arrested 532 people on Saturday after supporters of the recently banned group Palestine Action staged a protest to challenge the government's enforcement of the ban. Most were detained for displaying signs supporting the prescribed organization, while others arrested for offenses such as assaulting police officers. The group, outlawed for past violent actions and property damage, argues the ban unlawfully restricts free speech, while officials maintain it targets a group engaged in serious criminal activity, NPR has reported. Nearly half of those arrested were over 60, and police say decisions on charges could take weeks as counterterrorism officers prepared case files. A magnitude 6.1 earthquake struck Turkey's northwestern region on Sunday, killing an 81-year-old woman and injuring 29 others. The quake, centered in the town of Sendigri, caused 16 buildings to collapse and was felt as far as Istanbul. Search and rescue operations have ended, with officials reporting no further casualties, though images show severe destruction, the BBC has reported. Turkey, located on multiple tectonic plate boundaries, frequently experiences earthquakes, including the 2023 disaster that killed over 50,000 people in Turkey and 5,000 in Syria. A homeless man, Ross Judd, 34, has been charged with the murder of a pregnant woman and her partner in Melbourne, Australia. Police found the couple's bodies on Monday evening, with the man being decapitated. Authorities say the attack appears targeted, though the relationship between Judd and the victims is unclear. Graffiti reading "Betrayal" and "Enough is Enough" outside of the unit is also under investigation, the BBC has reported. Judd appeared in court on Wednesday and was remanded in custody, with the case adjourned until January of 2026. A school bus in rural Texas, north of Austin, rolled over on Wednesday, sending 10 people, including 9 students and the driver, to hospitals. One injury was life-threatening, and 2 were potentially life-threatening. The bus, carrying 43 passengers, went off the road before rolling, though the cause is still under investigation. The driver is experienced, and the bus, a 2024 model with seat belts, primarily serves a local elementary school, NBC News has reported. Officials are still determining how many students were restrained at the time. The remains of a British meteorologist, Dennis Tink Bell, who died in an accident in Antarctica in the year 1959 at age 25, has been found in a melting glacier by a Polish research team. Bell, known for his humor, his cooking skills, and devotion to sled dogs, was working for the Falkland Islands Dependency Survey when he fell during a surveying trip on King George Island. His death left his family without closure for decades. The discovery, aided by climate-driven glacier retreat, included personal items like his watch and his pipe, the BBC has reported. Bell's family now plans to lay him to rest in England, bringing an emotional end to a 66-year mystery. The body of a 31-year-old man, missing since falling in Pakistan's Lady Meadows Glacier in 1997, was found on July the 31st of this year as the glacier melted. Identified by his still intact clothes and ID card, he was buried on Wednesday. His family, who had searched for years without success, said the recovery brought relief, CBS News has reported. The discovery highlights the rapid glacier melt in Pakistan's Himalayas. California Governor Gavin Newsom urged lawmakers to approve a November ballot measure known as the Election Rigging Response Act, allowing Democrats to redraw congressional maps to counter Republican mid-decade redistricting in Texas. The move would bypass California's independent commission and potentially protect Democratic House seats in the 2026 elections. Newsom framed the effort as a response to Trump-backed GOP plans in Texas to gain up to 5 additional seats. The proposal requires legislative approval and voter backing, with maps expected soon, NBC News has reported. The dispute highlights a nationwide partisan tit for tat over redistricting, as Texas Democrats fled the state to block the GOP plan. The World Economic Forum board concluded there is no evidence of wrongdoing by Klaus Schwab after an independent probe into allegations that he and his wife misused forum resources. While minor irregularities were found, the board said that they reflected commitment rather than misconduct, and strengthened governance measures were implemented. Schwab, who is 87 years old, had already announced plans to step down. The WEF also replaced the interim chairman with Larry Fink and Andre Hoffman. The investigation dismissed claims that Schwab misused funds or asked employees to withdraw cash, France 24 has reported. Schwab, founder of the WEF, is known for turning the annual Davos summit into a major international business and political forum. Louisiana sued Roblox, alleging the platform fosters an environment where sexual predators target children. The Attorney General, Liz Murrill, claimed Roblox prioritizes growth and profits over safety, citing gaps in age verification and moderation. The lawsuit follows similar cases, including one in Iowa involving a 13-year-old allegedly trafficked after meeting an adult predator on Roblox. While the platform restricts sharing personal information and is testing age verification features, Murrill argues these measures are insufficient and called for Roblox to be shut down, ABC News has reported. Roblox says it is implementing AI systems and other safeguards to detect and prevent child exploitation. President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance will join a virtual meeting on Wednesday with Ukrainian President Zelensky and European allies, ahead of Trump's planned summit with Putin in Alaska on Friday. Zelensky said Russia has hinted at a potential ceasefire, but he warned that Putin is preparing new offensives in eastern Ukraine despite the upcoming meeting. Ukraine will not cede territory or limit its military, while Russia demands territorial concessions, NATO exclusion, and lifted sanctions, ABC News has reported. Trump described the Alaska summit as a feel-out meeting to determine if a deal would end the war is even possible. Texas AG Ken Paxton has asked a judge to jail Beto O'Rourke, alleging that he violated a court order blocking him and his group, Powered by People, from fundraising to cover Democrats' cost while they fled the state to block a GOP congressional map vote. Paxton cited O'Rourke's ex-post and rally solicitations, requesting $500 fines per violation and potential jail time. O'Rourke's lawyers denied wrongdoing, saying fundraising for political purposes is allowed, and then accused Paxton of misrepresenting statements, The Guardian has reported. The dispute comes as Republicans push a new congressional map, and O'Rourke's group helps fund Democrats' absence to prevent a quorum. Mexico has extradited 26 suspected cartel operatives to the United States, including members of the Jalisco New Generation cartel and the Sinaloa cartel, in its second major transfer this year. The individuals, accused of violent crimes and organized crime links, are considered high security risks. Among them is Abigail Gonzalez Valencia, alleged top financier for the CJNG leader El Mencho. Mexico approved the transfers on condition that none face the death penalty, BBC has reported. The move follows U.S. pressure to crack down on cross-border drug trafficking and comes amid ongoing cooperation on fentanyl smuggling, despite Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum rejecting any U.S. military action inside of the country. Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty says that she will seek the release of Brian Hooper Sr., who has served 27 years in prison for a 1998 Minneapolis murder after the state's key witness recanted and then confessed to the crime. Hooper, 54 years old, was convicted of killing 77-year-old Ann Prosniak and then given 3 life sentences. He has always maintained his innocence. The witness, now imprisoned in Georgia, admitted to the killing while Hooper's case was under review by the county's Conviction Integrity Unit, the Associated Press has reported. The Great North Innocence Project has petitioned to vacate his conviction, with a judge expected to decide within 90 days. A small plane crashed while landing at Kalispell City Airport in Montana on Monday, colliding with another aircraft and then sparking a fire. The pilot and 3 passengers escaped with only minor injuries and were treated at the scene. No one was aboard the stationary plane. Both aircraft were destroyed, but firefighters quickly contained the blaze with foam, Fox News has reported. The cause of the crash is under investigation. U.S. federal authorities, working with international partners, took down servers and domains and seized about $1 million in cryptocurrency linked to the Black Sweet ransomware gang. The group, which rebranded from Royal Ransomware in 2024, had targeted over 100 companies last year across industries like manufacturing, education, healthcare, and construction, and compromised more than 450 U.S. victims since 2022. While the takedown disrupts Black Sweet's operations, experts warned the gang could potentially rebuild or rebrand, Axios has reported. Over 500 humanoid robots from 280 teams across 16 countries are competing in 26 events, from soccer and boxing to medicine sorting and cleaning, at the first World Humanoid Robot Games in Beijing. The 3-day event showcases AI-powered robotics, with robots often toppling or malfunctioning during competitions. China, making humanoids a national priority, aims to demonstrate global leadership in robotics, backed by a $139 billion fund for tech startups, the DW has reported. The games will also allow teams to test new approaches and innovations in a competitive setting. Clashes between pro and anti-government groups in Serbia have left dozens injured and nearly 50 arrested, marking the second consecutive night of street violence amid months of anti-corruption protest. The unrest, sparked by a deadly railway station collapse in Novi Sad last year, escalated after ruling party supporters attacked demonstrators. In Belgrade and in Novi Sad, masked pro-government groups hurled projectiles at protesters, prompting police to use tear gas. Tensions rose when a military police officer fired a pistol into the air near the protesters, The Guardian has reported. Student-led activists accuse authorities of protecting government supporters while cracking down on dissent, as President Alexander Vučić rejects calls for early elections and blames foreign interference. Sudan's paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF, attacked the famine-stricken displacement camp near El Fasher on Monday, killing 40 people and injuring at least 19 others. This, according to local rights groups. The camp, home to 450,000 displaced people, has faced repeated assaults during the RSF's war with the Sudanese military. Satellite imagery and eyewitness reports indicate RSF fighters targeted civilians in their homes, used ethnic slurs, and blocked escape routes. The broader conflict, ongoing since April of 2023, has killed over 40,000 people, displaced 12 million, and driven many to famine, the Associated Press has reported. The United Nations warns conditions in El Fasher are catastrophic, with over 60 malnutrition deaths, mostly women and children, in the past week. Spirit Airlines warned of possible insolvency just months after emerging from bankruptcy, citing weak domestic demand, excess capacity, and dwindling cash reserves. The carrier, which filed Chapter 11 last November and restructured in March, is facing credit card processing risks, potential liquidity shortfalls, and ongoing operational pressures. Spirit plans to raise cash by selling assets and cutting airport gate capacity, but says substantial doubt remains about its ability to continue operating over the next year, Reuters has reported. Elon Musk threatened to sue Apple, accusing it of antitrust violations for allegedly favoring OpenAI's ChatGPT over his xAI's Grok chatbot in App Store rankings and promotions. Musk claimed Apple's practices make it, quote, impossible for other AI firms to reach the top spot and criticized its must have section for excluding X and Grok. Apple, which last year integrated ChatGPT into its devices, declined to comment, CNBC has reported. Grok recently became the number 5 free app, while ChatGPT holds the top spot and is the only AI chatbot in Apple's featured section. A shooting at a nightclub in Santa Lucia, Ecuador, on Sunday left 8 people dead and 3 injured, marking another violent incident in the country. Police said the attackers, armed and arriving on motorcycles and in vehicles, opened fire on victims aged between 20 to 40. The motive remains unknown, but authorities link recent violence and organized crime groups tied to international drug cartels, CBS News has reported. Ecuador has recorded over 4,600 killings so far in 2025, with several coastal provinces under a state of emergency amid a surge in drug related violence. Intel shares surged 7.4% after reports that the Trump administration is considering a government investment in the struggling chipmaker to support its Ohio factory hub and financial stability amid job cuts. Talks followed a meeting between President Trump and Intel CEO, despite Trump recently calling for the CEO's resignation over alleged ties to China. While the White House stressed the discussions are speculative, investors reacted positively, lifting Intel's market value to $104.4 billion, The Guardian has reported. The potential stake would mark another U.S. government intervention in critical industries, despite Trump's prior criticism of Intel's leadership. A hiker in his 20s was killed by a brown bear on Mount Rausu in Hokkaido, northern Japan, after being dragged into the forest on Thursday. Authorities found his body and personal items near the scene on Friday, and hunters killed a bear nearby. DNA test will confirm if it was responsible. Hokkaido's brown bear population has slightly declined, but human bear encounters are rising, with 219 attacks and 6 deaths reported in the past year, CBS News has reported. Experts are citing climate change and rural depopulation as factors allowing bears to expand their range, prompting new government measures to protect people, including approved hunting in populated areas. President Trump announced Monday that he is federalizing Washington, D.C.'s police force for up to 30 days and deploying 800 National Guard troops to address what he called a public safety emergency. Invoking Section 740 of the D.C. Home Rule Act, Trump placed the Metropolitan Police Department under federal control, citing high profile crimes and pledging to remove homeless encampments. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser called the move, quote, unsettling and unprecedented, but said that the city would comply. CBS News has reported. Texas House Democrats who left the state to block a vote on new congressional maps plan to return, claiming victory for derailing the first special session and drawing national attention to the redistricting fight. Their return may shift depending on whether Republicans begin a second special session, which Governor Greg Abbott has pledged to call immediately if needed. Democrats say their plans remain fluid, contingent on GOP actions and prioritization of issues like flood relief over redistricting, ABC News has reported. Researchers in El Mirador Cave, northern Spain, have uncovered evidence of Neolithic cannibalism dating back 5,700 years. Skeletal remains of 11 individuals, including children, show cut marks, cooking, and human bite marks, suggesting the bodies were deliberately consumed after a violent conflict. Experts believe this was war cannibalism, aimed at erasing enemies physically and spiritually, rather than survival cannibalism, Euronews has reported. The findings challenge the notion of peaceful Neolithic societies, showing that they also resolved conflicts violently, though researchers emphasize this reflects cultural practices, not genetic predisposition. A Union Pacific train derailed on Tuesday afternoon in Palo Pinto County, Texas, sending 35 cars, many carrying hazardous materials, off the tracks near Colville Road Bridge. Officials reported no leaks or injuries, but treated the incident as a hazardous materials situation. Fire crews contained a grass fire at the scene, and no evacuations were ordered, The Guardian has reported. The cause is under investigation. Japan marked the 80th anniversary of its World War II surrender, with Prime Minister Ishiba expressing remorse for the first time since 2013. About 4,500 officials and families observed a moment of silence for the more than 3 million war dead, while Ishiba urged passing on the memory of the war to future generations to ensure lasting peace. Meanwhile, right-wing politicians, including the Japanese agricultural minister, visited the controversial Yasukuni Shrine, which honors convicted war criminals and has drawn criticism from China and South Korea, Euronews has reported. A passenger train collided with a vehicle at a level crossing in southern Denmark on Friday, killing one person and injuring around 20 others. Several train carriages were derailed or overturned. Emergency services, including drones and search dogs, responded to the scene, this according to the Denmark, which operates Denmark's rail network, the Associated Press has reported.